As students, we have to do assignments, hand them in,
Here is my homework, Mr. Vodka.
and receive marks and feedback from the teacher. If we do great, we receive good marks. If not, it's the other way around. Mussolini has homework to do. His homework is called Miga, or Make Italy Great Again, to restore the glory of the historical Roman Empire. He has to show his homework to two different audiences, Italian people and politicians and the leaders of the country. In order to get good marks on his homework, Mussolini had to make himself look strong to his audiences. He had to enhance his own prestige and the status of his fascist party. To do so, he had to expand the territories of the country, Italy, which essentially is Italy's territorial expansionism and imperialism, which are the foreign policies we were looking at in the video. If he failed to make himself look strong, the consequences would be much more severe than just getting a bad grade. It means he would lose his power and potentially be killed by his opponents. Italy has not received all the territories promised after World War I. Mussolini desperately wanted to enhance his own prestige and the status of his fascist party. He got his chance in 1923 when Italy was allowed to be one of the countries working in a commission authorized by the League of Nations to settle a border dispute between Albania and Greece.
The man in the picture was Enrico Tallini. He was the chairman of the commission and an Italian general, which the Greece commission accused Italy of favoring Albania's claim. On August 27th, Tallini was found shot and killed, along with 4 companions near the disputed Albanian border.
However, and interestingly, 1 month before the assassination, Italy had already made a plan to take over Corfu. 2 days later, Italy issued an ultimatum to Greece, demanding an apology and reparations. Greece responded 1 day later, agreed to honor Tallini, but refused to pay any reparations. This gave Italy an excuse to take military actions, which on August 31st, Mussolini dispatched forces and soon landed and occupied Corfu with very limited resistance. Mussolini defied the League of Nations. He stated that Italy would withdraw from Corfu only if Greece agreed to pay reparations. Italy withdrew from Corfu 17 days later on September 27. After Greece agreed to pay reparations, Corfu had been a part of the Republic of Venice for about 400 years. Geographically, it was on the east side of the Ionian Sea and very close to the border between Albania and Greece. Additionally, Corfu was not far away from Italian mainland, about 750 km, so it was easy for Italian military and battleships to reach the Corfu Islands of Greece.
The incident helped Mussolini to enhance his prestige, which is essential for him to consolidate his power. The incident was also Italy's first and major attempt to test League of Nations' authority and power, and he proved the weaknesses and the inability of League of Nations in solving problems. It set a milestone for Italy to launch future invasions, such as its involvement in its neighboring countries and Africa, because their ableness to challenge League of Nations and global powers. It also drew a closer relationship between Italy and Albania, and led to significant treaties being signed between the two parties, making Albania more reliant on Italy. Albania is a neighboring country of Greece and a key to Balkan Peninsula. Mussolini wanted to have gradual control over Albania by implanting foreign policies that could essentially help him achieve such goals. Mussolini first proposed Albania to fund its national bank, but was solely controlled by Italian banks. It was accepted by Zog I, the elected president and later the king of Albania, in May 1925. Both parties saw such collaboration could be a mutual gain, as Albanian President Zog I relied on Italy to help legitimize and sustain his rule and help develop Albania's economy. And Mussolini needed to control over Albania to expand its international dominance. On November 27, 1926, Italy pushed Albania to sign the first Treaty of Tirana. It had a 5 years validity. This allowed Italy to have its influence in Albanian military, as Italian officers and military members were permitted into Albanian's army and police. Italy also proclaimed Albania as its guarantor. Under this treaty, Italy agreed to provide economic support to Albania and promised to defend its national interest and national sovereignty. On November 22nd, 1927, the Second Treaty of Tirana was signed between Italy and Albania, which was a secret defensive alliance that had a validity of 20 years. Albania was rushed to sign the treaty with both internal and external threat. The treaty was an extension to the previous treaty. It gave Italy more control and influence over Albania military, allowing Italy Navy to have access to the port of Vlorë and establish military bases in Albania. Even though Albania was heavily dependent on Italy, the King Zog I refused to completely give in to the Italian pressure. Some examples could be he openly refused to renew the first Treaty of Tirana with Italy in 1931, and he also signed trade agreements with Yugoslavia and Greece in 1934. And as Hitler's military territorial expansion to annex Austria and Czechoslovakia, it triggered Mussolini's plan to annex Albania as well. On March 25th, 1939, Italy delivered Albania an ultimatum, demanding Albania to consent Italy's invasion. Obviously, Albania refused, and on April 7th, 1939, led by General Gazzoni, Mussolini ordered the invasion against Albania. The Italian army crumbled the Albanian army, and Albania surrendered 5 days later. On April 12th, the Albania parliament deposed Zalk I and united the country with Italy and offering its crown to Italy as King Victor Emmanuel III. On April 15th, Albania withdrew from the League of Nations. Geographically, Albania was proximity to the Adriatic and Ionia Seas, which allows Italian Navy to have command of the Sea of Mediterranean. It is also the door to the Balkan Peninsula, which was essential for Mussolini to launch future actions and territorial expansions. In World War II, Albania's geographical location was significant for the Imperial Italy to launch trade and military operations, which explained why Mussolini chosen Albania to invade. The signing of the two treaties allowed Italy to exert its influence over Albania, which made it more and more dependent on Italy, and this led to Italy's invasion of Albania in 1939. And Italy's annexation of Albania in 1939 provided Italy with strategic location of Balkan Peninsula. Its geographical location helped Mussolini to achieve his expansionism policies by launching invasions on other countries such as Greece, Yugoslavia, and other neighboring countries. After World War I, there was a major international problem revolved around the status of the city Fiume. It was a disputed city between the Kingdom of Serbs, Croats, and the Slavonus, later called Kingdom of Yugoslavia, which we will just call it Yugoslavia in the video, and Italy. To resolve this issue, the great powers, which included Britain, France, and United States, advocated for Fiume to become an independent buffer state. On September 12, 1919, a group of armed Italian irregulars, which included several thousand men, led by Italian poet Gabriel Annunzio, occupied the city of Fiume, defying the authority of both disputed countries, and sustained the occupation for 15 months. On November 12, 1920, the Kingdom of Italy and the Kingdom of Yugoslavia signed the Treaty of Rapallo, acknowledging the independence of Fiume state. As the Free State of Fiume was created, it was immediately recognized by the great powers. However, the Di Annunzio, which was a poet who led the occupation, refused to acknowledge such agreement, which in December 24th, Italian authorities intervened and expelled Di Annunzio from Fiume. On January 27, 1924, Italy and Yugoslavia signed the Treaty of Rome, agreeing Italy annex Fiume and Yugoslavia absorb Susak. On February 22nd, both parties ratified the agreement, and the treaty became effective the same day, and was registered in the League of Nations Treaty Service on April 7th, 1924. Italy chose Fiume mainly because of economic reasons. Geographically, Fiume was the only other Mediterranean port with a railway connection to Central Europe and the Balkan Peninsula. Since Italy was already getting Trieste, another major Habsburg port, Fiume was the only other port left to gain. Economically, this made it an appealing choice for Italy, as it provided strategic access to important trading markets and transportation routes. Fiume was not relatively significant for Mussolini or for Italy at all, but arguably it kind of creates a sense of Italian nationalism and national pride, which allowed Mussolini and his fascist party to gain prestige over the internal and the international audiences, which essentially helped Mussolini to look strong to his audiences and consolidate his power. Italy wanted colonies in Africa for a long time. In the late 19th centuries, Italy launched a war to Ethiopia and lost the First Italo-Ethiopian War. The failure to occupy Ethiopia had been seen as an embarrassment and humiliation to Italian people and political leaders. And if Mussolini and his fascist party could successfully seize Ethiopia, that would help him and his fascist party to look strong to their audiences. The Second Italo-Ethiopian War was a war fought between Italy and Ethiopia from October 3rd, 1935 to February 1937. On October 3rd, 1935, 200,000 soldiers of the Italian army attacked Ethiopia without prior declaration of war. With the help from modern technologies, such as the use of heavy artillery, airstrikes, and the bombs and chemistry weapons, the Italian army quickly seized many of them Ethiopia's major cities. And the resistance was insufficient, as Ethiopians' army's soldiers were poorly equipped and armed, and their weapons were outdated compared to the Italians. And thus, Ethiopia only managed to stalemate and stop Italian advance for only a few weeks before Italian forces largely overwhelmed the Ethiopians. On May 2nd, 1936, Emperor Haile Selassie departed Ethiopia with his family to French Somaliland, and soon after, on May 5th, Italian forces captured the capital of Ethiopia, Addis Ababa. On May 7th, Italy announced the annexation of Ethiopia, and Mussolini proclaimed Italian King Victor Emmanuel III to be the Emperor of Ethiopia. In response to Italy's aggression, the League of Nations condemned the Italian invasion in 1935 and voted to impose economic and military sanctions on Italy. This includes banning of loans and selling rubber, tin, and metals to Italy, as well as selling weapons and arms. Those sanctions remained ineffective because of general lacking of support. Nazi Germany, however, insisted on League of Nations arms embargo on Italy and sent limited supplies, military aids, and advisors to Ethiopia, intending to make Italy delay the occupation of Ethiopia and thus making Italy more dependent on Germany for the future. On December 11th, 1937, Italy withdrew from the League of Nations due to the early sanctions being imposed by the League of Nations. The first reason why Italy invaded Ethiopia is with the intention of enhancing its national prestige, which has been damaged by the Ethiopia's victory over Italian troops during the First Italo-Ethiopian War. The invasion was seen as a way to rectify the earlier defeat. Ethiopia also has appealing resources such as mineral, water, coffee, and other valuable goods that Italy could exploit. Additionally, Ethiopia's geographic location made it significant for Italian expansionism policy in Africa. It was the gate for Mussolini to have access to the rest of the Africa world, which would be crucial for its future involvement in Africa. There were three major significance on Italy's invasion of Ethiopia. First, the invasion proved the ineffectiveness and the inability of League of Nations as its imposed sanctions has lack of support from its member countries and did not affect Italy much at all. Second, the invasion was significant for the formation of Axis power, Japan, Germany, and Italy. The invasion made Italy turn to Germany for support. And lastly, which we already talked about, that Ethiopia was important for Italy's future involvement in Africa world in World War II. Italy invaded Ethiopia because Mussolini wanted to establish an Italian empire and restore the past glory of Roman Empire, and to expand its territories as part of the Mussolini's expansionist policies. Invading other countries is essential for a far-right authoritarian government to promote nationalism to the people. Italy lost disastrously to Ethiopia in the past, and if Mussolini could successfully occupy Ethiopia, it can provide him and his fascist party an opportunity to show their strong ability to Italian politicians and people. Those audiences are essential to help Mussolini to sustain his rule. Russia invaded the Ukraine, which started on February 2022, serves the same reason. Putin wanted to restore the territorial glory of Russia in Soviet era. Russia, as a authoritarian government, Putin needed to demonstrate and penetrate him as a strong leader to sustain his rule. Ukraine's resources such as land, food, natural gas, and minerals were appealing to Putin Russia, which Italy want to have access to resources such as land, water, minerals, and etc. Moreover, geographically, Ukraine was strategically important to Russia as it's located between Russia and Europe, with access to the Black Sea and Sea of Azov. It was commonly known for it being a key buffer zone between Russia and the NATO. And once Russia took over Ukraine, it could have more control over the Western Europe and have more influence internationally. Parallels to Italy's annexation of Ethiopia, Mussolini took Ethiopia's geographical location into consideration too, as Italy had also already established colonies in neighboring countries such as Eritrea and Somalia. Geographically, by occupying Ethiopia, it could help Italy to launch future expansions and involvement in Africa world. In response to Italy's aggression, the League of Nations condemned the Italian invasion in 1935 and voted to impose economic sanctions on Italy. The sanctions were ineffective because of general lacking of support, and only very few countries like British and Nazi Germany complied to satisfy their own interests. Similarly, the United Nations and the EU condemned and imposed sanctions on Russia too, but it was much harsher and effective as it involved many more countries globally. Russia had been condemned in the United Nations multiple times, which included the United Nations General Assembly Resolution ES 11/1, with 141 countries voted for the motion of condemning and demanding Russia withdraw from unlawful invasion from Ukraine and the reversal of its decisions to recognize the self-declared People's Republic of Donetsk and Luhansk. The international reaction to Russia's invasion was very different from that of Italy's because Russia's invasion received far greater international attention. Russia was harshly chastised, while the Whites overwhelmingly supported Ukraine.
Sir, I think Ukrainians can tell you a little bit about freedom and liberty, so why don't you settle down? This is a night for them, not for you!
This was not in the case during the Italy's invasion of Ethiopia, since very few countries cared. Russia's economy shrinks profoundly as a result of economic harsh sanctions that were imposed by the European Union. And lastly, you're probably tired of my voice, and I'm probably tired of editing the video. The invasion was crucial for the development of the Axis powers because Italy saw its limited capabilities and linked closer to Germany for support. This parallel with the situation today with the strong links that exist now between Russia and China, as they are more and more dependent on each other for support as the Ukraine war continues. Are arguably the closer ties of BRICS countries today trying to challenge the dominance of US dollars.